Morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson. We're continuing our study of 1 Corinthians 15 as part of our larger study of Jesus' resurrection. 1 Corinthians 15 being the magnum opus, theologically, of explaining the bodily resurrection of Jesus and what it means for us as Christians. And he pretty much concluded his argument to the Corinthian brethren, some of whom were denying the bodily resurrection of Jesus, in our last session. And he ends in verse 34 by saying, I speak this to your shame. I am ashamed of where you are in your spiritual walk, in your Christian understanding. You should be better than this. You should know better than this. Now he's going to take the time in the rest of the chapter to really go into detail, um, probably in detail that he did not go into while he was there, and he was there a year and a half. But he's going to go into real detail to talk about what the resurrection, our bodily resurrection, will be like, and then in verses 50 and following, what the moment will be like, what the event will be like. Um, I want to mention remind us what we've already studied in our study of Jesus' resurrection, what we know about his resurrection body. Um, we um, we said that it was a corporeal body. It was made of material stuff. It wasn't just energy floating around. Um, I don't know if there were Higgs boson in his body creating matter. I don't know, but it was corporeal. It was something that was material, and he could show his wounds. Now that body, Philippians chapter 2, is going to be glorified after he ascends to his Father, and we see that glorified body in Revelation 1, which we'll look at after we finish 1 Corinthians 15. But we also saw that his corporeal body, his material body, was not the same as it was before his resurrection. It was not bound by the three dimensions that we experience here on earth. He could appear on the other side of a locked door in a locked room, and and then he could just disappear in front of the eyes of someone. So he's not bound by the three dimensions that we're bound by in our corporeal bodies. Okay, let's read verses 35 through 49. It's a long reading, but it's pretty much self-explanatory and straightforward. It's just beautiful poetry, and just filled with information. Some will say, verse 35, how are the dead raised, and with what kind of body do they come? You fool, that which you sow does not come to life unless it dies, and that which you sow, you do not sow the body which is to be, but a bare grain, perhaps of wheat, or of something else. But God gives it a body, just as he wished, and to each of the seeds a body of its own. All the flesh is not the same flesh. There is one flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of birds, another of fish. And there are heavenly bodies and earthly bodies, but the glory of the heavenly is one, and the glory of the earthly is another. There is one glory of the sun, one glory of the moon, another glory of the stars, for stars differ from star in glory. So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown a perishable body, it is raised an imperishable body. It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in honor. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. If there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. So also it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living soul. The last Adam became a life-giving spirit. However, the spirit is not first, but the natural, then the spiritual. The first man is from the earth, earthy. The second man is from heaven. As is the earthy, so also are the earthy, those who are earthy. And as is the heavenly, so also are those who are heavenly. Just as we have borne the image of the earthy, we shall bear the image of the heavenly. Okay, I was reading in the New American Standard, and I think I would have put earthly instead of earthy, but but if I were the translator. There's just so much here. He's already used an agricultural metaphor, first fruits, earlier. So now he's going to use more. He's going to delve into that notion more. And he talks about planting a seed. And it's such a beautiful metaphor. It explains so much. It's like planting a seed. If you're gonna if you're gonna plant corn and you put a couple of kernels in the ground, you don't get a couple of kernels that come up out of the ground. You know, one of those kernels is going to germinate. You're going to have a stalk of corn, and you're going to have an ear of corn, and you're going to get exponentially more, um, larger, more nourishing, more productive from the seed that you plant. And he says that's what we when our bodies die, and they're literally planted, as many of us will be and have been, those who have gone on, planted in the ground. When they are raised up, they're just the seed of what will be. And he talks about the different natures, the different origins, the different outcomes, the different substances of different bodies. And in verses 38 through 41, it's almost a direct quote from Philo of Alexandria. Philo was one of the great philosophers of the first century, certainly the greatest Jewish philosopher of the first century. There were two great Jewish teachers that were contemporary with Jesus' life. One is Philo of Alexandria, and the other is Rabbi Gamaliel in Jerusalem. Um, and Paul has evidently learned from both of them. Um, and um, and so we have this knowledge of Philo that's communicated. Philo uses almost the same words to say we get it, we get that there are different kinds of bodies, different substances, and we shouldn't be surprised that we can exist materially, but in a way that we don't exist now, and that that the that the caterpillar can turn into a butterfly after going into its chrysalis and then become something completely different. That a seed can be planted in the ground and be raised something completely different. And so that's what he's describing, and so clearly and so beautifully. And then he's going back to the first Adam, the first man, and the last Adam. He quotes Genesis 2:7, became a living soul. And then he says, a life giving spirit. Um, the writer of Hebrews will talk about the word being living and active in 4:12, able to discern between soul and spirit. And Paul is making a distinction between soul and spirit here. The word soul, suke, life force, just the spark of life. Um, and that's what God gave to Adam when he breathed into Adam. But breath, the word for breath, both in Hebrew and in Greek, is all same word for wind and the same word for spirit, pneuma. And Jesus gives us eternal pneuma, the breath of God that is eternal, something beyond just the spark of life. And we have it in Jesus, and it is contained in our resurrection bodies. Um, and then he goes on to compare and contrast, the nature of an earthly body and a heavenly body, one that we'll have in heaven. And it's just so clear, so straightforward, and there's not much more I can say about it. So I'll stop. Thank you so much for joining me for another 5 good minutes. We'll look at verses 50 through the end of the chapter next time, and we'll see you then.